Welcome to a show that we call The Perfect Storm. Justin Lawman is with us here.
Why do we call it The Perfect Storm,
Well, that's
Phil?
the question. That's the first question I was going to ask you.
We're looking at current news in light of Bible prophecy. What's
Very
the Bible saying about what's actually happening now? Doesn't always, but there's so much happening.
Awesome.
It's a perfect storm because it's coming in from 5 different directions all at once onto God's people. And largely, people are unaware.
And they're right in the center of the storm and not knowing which way to go.
They're getting a sense of some stuff on, but they're not sure exactly where it's heading. We want to talk about where it's heading.
We've got Kyle Morrison in the control room. Say hello, Kyle.
We should give Kyle a nickname. No, let's not do that.
Well, welcome to The Perfect Storm. We're going to start off. We're going to set the groundwork here. We're going to talk about in this podcast. We're going to do it weekly. I'm going to come and talk about the perfect storm and what's going on. Let's set it all up by saying, what's going on in the world as far as globalism. Give us a bit of a background on what's happening.
In the political world, and that's one of the storms that are all merging into this big supercell.
Yep.
One of the things that's going on, and it's been going on for a long time now, if we wind the clock back to the Second World War, we had Adolf Hitler wreck Europe and the whole world, and then we have, the Japanese emperor, Tojo, whoever he is, do his thing. The world rejected nationalism and populism when you combine those two together, and they went into a period where the United Nations, and we'll call it globalism, became the predominant direction for all countries. They had open borders. The EU now, they want it so you can there's no countries anymore. We're one big happy family. But that's not working. We're going to have open economies. We don't make Holdens in Australia anymore. General Motors can't make it. Everything's made overseas and increasingly just in China. Got rid of manufacturing because it's got to be now globalism. It's like one big country. That's not working. Not only an economy, they had an open view on morals. Are you a boy or are you a girl? Well, you can make up your own mind. Like things that you would think would never be questioned just got thrown out. And the world has woken up to that. And we're coming back to, as one author calls it, the return of the strong gods. Populism and nationalism is sweeping the world. We're in the first week of July in 2024 as we record this.
Yes.
France has had an overwhelming sweeping. The Conservatives have come because that open borders has really got people's back up. Well, they want to kick out all the Islamic immigrants from France. Marine Le Pen, she's just wiping the board with the current guy that's a globalist. In Ireland, in Italy, in so many countries, Hungary, and the United States, here we have our mate Donald the Trumpy Bear. He's a populist and a nationalist. Make America great. So behind the scenes, we're going to talk about the nitty gritty a bit.
Yep.
But behind the scenes is these big forces at war, and the election that's coming up. When is the election in 2024 in America?
November.
You're all over this, Phil.
Yeah, I don't know much, but I know it's in November.
It's November 5th or something like that, eh?
Okay. They get sworn in January 20.
January 20.
Yeah. So what are you seeing with these two sides?
Biden is globalist.
Okay.
And in Bible prophecy, in Daniel 11, we call that side the king of the south. They're atheistic. Even though he claims to be a Catholic, his abortion and all these issues is an anti-God stance, anti-religion.
Yep.
On the other side, and it's not just Trump. Trump's just an instrument for that side to use. It is the populists, which is, I call them the angry mob. It's the will of the people. They're really angry and they're wanting change.
Yep.
Globalism is like a bully. He's dominating everyone, even though they don't want it. You'll own nothing and be happy. The Great Reset. That's all globalism. Climate change and all the implications of it. I'm sorry. I have to talk about climate change. It's being used. I'm not talking about the science of it. It's being used as a tool to control the masses. That's globalists. They're bullies. Populists are the angry mob. And the angry mob, I don't want to have a mob chase me. I'd rather deal with one bully. The mob is coming. And we're seeing it all over the world. It's only just begun. And it's linked in with nationalism. Bring back the borders. Stop the immigration. Let us hold our own culture. That's been here from time immemorial. In the Bible, there are nation states, kings and kingdoms, it says. That's coming back in with a vengeance. And so the phenomena that we're watching in the world at the moment is a bigger movement, a bigger shift that's happening, and it's playing right into the core of Bible prophecy, which is Revelation chapter 13. And the image to the beast, church and the government becoming one, and then the mark of the beast. So we'll talk about all that later, but that's a big sweeping
We're going to
overview.
unpack that biblical, Revelation 13.
Yeah, something like that.
Let's talk about, Trump's been convicted. He's meant to go to jail soon.
Yes.
We don't know when. And after this, we'll talk about the debate. But first on, let's make comment on, make comment on this whole conviction.
Try and be neutral.
Yep.
Because I'm repulsed by globalism, so I have to be as neutral as I can.
Yep.
And Trump gets a bit annoying too, but what he got convicted on, he made payments to Stormy Daniels. At least his accountant did. His lawyers apparently negotiated all and stole money himself. That was listed in the book. Write it down in the book. The accountant says legal fees, and they're saying, oh, no, that's only a misdemeanor, which you can't go to prison for. They had to go change the law because it was past 7 years where it was outside the time you could convict for it.
Statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations. Thanks, Kyle. So instead, they actually say, well, it's interfered with the election, and it's not just a misdemeanor, that's a felony, which in America that means you can go to prison.
Yep.
You do go to prison for a felony. So they manufactured this court case, which I've got to say everyone says from all sides, this is weak. They didn't think it'd even get up. Well, somehow with the New York jury, which they're all globalists in New York, that's their natural side, the left, they convicted Donald Trump of this crime, and he's going to be sentenced next week for us as we're doing this recording, July 11th.
Okay.
Will he go to prison, Phil?
Well, this is the question. Will he? Let's talk about the election. Well, not the election, the actual, what's it called? Debate that just happened. 76% of voters said that Donald Trump won the debate.
Just a little bit, he won.
Biden's approval dropped from 33% to 29%.
Yep.
What happened? 27th of...
They saw that the most powerful man in the world, his position is, he's certainly not personally, but his position, they said this guy has dementia. That's what happened. They saw him, and everyone sort of felt a bit sad. The thing that got me, Phil, you watch the news. Is this the first time we've seen Biden freeze or fall up steps or lose his train of thought or use a word?
There's reels upon reels about Biden.
It's every day. And all of a sudden, CNN, who are hosting this debate, they have an epiphany. They he couldn't talk properly.
Yep.
This is terrible. I thought, where have you been living, guys?
It's the inevitable.
And that to me, it says two things. Either they are in such a bubble that we can all use just our own news, the people we like, and listen to what they say. Never listen to someone that has a different opinion. That's dangerous. Always take in everyone's info.
Yep.
Make your own mind up, but take in all the info. Either they're in such a bubble that they honestly thought that Biden could hold a debate against Trump. It was embarrassing.
It was almost like that was the first time that it was undeniable live for 90 minutes.
You can't get out of it.
And everybody was watching it at once. Because everything else they just lie about. But this one they were struggling to lie about.
Just a week before, Obama had to help him off the stage. And they said that was like oh, that was manufactured the way people are showing it.
Mm.
They've lied so much.
It was interesting that Joe kept saying Donald's a liar. He's a liar. He's a liar. He's a liar. He's a liar. It was his main answer.
That's obviously a talking point. The reality is the most lies are being told on his side. Yeah. But, hey, I'm sure Don exaggerates everything. The best ever. Yeah. Perfect phone call.
Even talked about his golf game. Yeah.
But either that or they know, because they must know behind the scenes what's going on. They set Biden up so he would resign. And they came on him and his wife with such pressure that we want you to pull the pin because we've got Michelle Obama, we've got Gavin Newsom in California, we got whoever to parachute in. I don't think they want the vice president to go because she's more unpopular than Joe, Kamala Harris. Either way, it was either they live in a bubble or this is a setup that they were trying to put pressure on him to get him out. But the fact they did it in June, they never do a debate that early. Mm. They wait till September or something before they start. After they've been elected by the parties that put them in, and they're going to do that in August. The fact they did this early, I think this is a bit of a setup to actually put pressure on him to get him out.
The earliest one ever that they've ever done.
Never been that early. So that's a tell for me that they're feigning, oh, this is so bad, he has to resign. That's a setup. This is a setup. Smells like one.
The debate was, you're saying the debate was a setup so that he will resign. It's only him that can choose to resign. There's no things in place that,
there's other ways
they can
around
say
it.
you can resign, you have to resign.
And there are other ways around, and they've not passed that, the Americans. But hey, here we are today.
Mm.
Right now, Jill and Joe. Now I'll say Jill because she seems to be running the show. His wife. They've dug in and they say he's not going nowhere. So all of a sudden, the media that were calling for it, they realised, oh, we're helping Trump here. Oh, it wasn't that bad. Donald lied on lies on lies. That's their line that they're trying to reinforce, that he's a liar. Whatever. This is politics. This is nasty. This is more serious. This is not politics as per normal. Normally, like in Australia here, Kyle, how often are we having federal elections? Every 3 years, 4 years? 3 years, isn't it? States 4. We do it every 3.
Sometimes they just stab each other in the back and we get a different one.
They just change them out anyway.
Yeah.
You sort of, they might know they're going to lose and they just start to prepare then. Well, in 3 years' time, we're going to be ready and going to do it better.
Yeah.
That's no longer in play here because they have used lawfare against Trump in a way never seen. Ridiculous cases. So you know what Trump's going to do if he gets in because they have actually given him the evidence. He has evidence to jail people from the other side. They're in a panic because it's normally they just say, oh, look, we're going to lose this one, but in 2028, we're going to come back with a new candidate and we'll get power back. I don't think that's a normal election cycle now because there's too much at stake. Whoever wins this one, however they win it, it's going to be for decades that they hold power because they're going to absolutely crush the other side with the government and its power that it has because they've used what should be an independent justice department. It's become political, and that's new to America to the extent it is. So this is now dangerous stuff that they're playing with.
So let's talk about you're a person, you're a Christian, you're a Seventh-day Adventist in America or around the world. You're looking at all this happening. One party's going to get in. What are the things we need to look for? What's the thing we need to be aware of if either party gets in? Let's start with, let's just say Joe Biden gets in. What are we doing?
I think what happens next is a civil war because the belief, and this is terrible to say, but the belief system of the American Christians, who are the majority, even though that the bullies they've got all control of the government, the deep state, the unelected officials that are running everything. They don't have a Christian worldview. They're working on that globalist side of things. It's become so contentious that if just say Joe gets in again, well, that's the end of Trump. He will go to prison for the rest of his life. And it's not just Trump. There's heaps of others. I think it's going to turn to violence. And in America, I'd probably get in trouble for saying that. And I hope they don't chase me down
Well,
here.
this is our opinion and all that. But,
That's just my opinion. I think it's going to end up in violence.
How do you think they get around the 22nd Amendment of the 2-term limit here?
They won't have to, because there's no one in this election that can break a 2-term. They'll just have someone else.
Oh, you're just saying the political party will be.
Yeah, it's not the individual.
Gotcha.
No, sorry. Not the individual. It's that side.
Mm-hmm.
The populist nationalists, they're the majority. And if there is if it leads to violence, that side will win because there's so many more of them and they're armed to the teeth.
Say Trump gets in.
Trump gets in. He's written a document called, well, he hasn't written it. His side has written a document called Project 2025.
Right.
It's very specific. He's got 3,500 jobs that he's going to wipe out immediately, sack everyone in the CIA and FBI at the higher levels, and put his own people in there. Because he realised Russiagate, all these things that came against him, impeachments, the government officials, he calls them the deep state or the swamp, they cooked all this up. And he's wiser this time around, so he's got a plan. In his first 100 days, the American government will look really different. They want to basically destroy the FBI and rebuild it again.
So you're saying Project 2025, like, first of all, has Trump actually said that he's on board with Project 2025?
Yeah, he sure has.
Okay.
And
that
by the way,
includes-
Kyle, within that, there's 6 pages on what they want to do with Sunday observance. That and people that understand Bible prophecy and the mark of the beast understand the significance of that.
Let's unpack that a little bit, because
we probably should hold that off a bit. We shouldn't go there.
You don't want to
yet.
pack it? Okay.
I think we should hold that off. But that's a public document. The Heritage Foundation, very level-headed. I listened to an interview that he gave the other day, and they came at him about all this. And he held his ground.
Yeah.
Like they're really doing this. They've got the people this time. Last time when Trump won in 2016, I think he didn't expect to win. They were not prepared. And Comey comes into the office and sets them up the first day. And he's lost a key component of his team. What was the general's name that they...
Mike Flynn,
who was really going to run intelligence for him. They cornered him. They fired him as a result of this setup. They didn't realize they were being set up. He got set up for Russiagate even before the election. So they're not playing fair, but they're playing.
So at the moment, we've got wars everywhere. Like, we've got wars in the Middle East. We've got wars in Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
Trump's often said, he's come to the microphone, he's blatantly said, I'll stop the war between Russia and Ukraine immediately. How's he do that?
I don't know. But
in your opinion?
Well, in my opinion, you just look what he did when he was in last. I remember there was a leader in Afghanistan that was killing American soldiers. So he calls him on the phone and he says, hey, I'm looking at your house right now with a satellite, with a drone. We're going to bomb you into next week, into, eternity, and your family as well. I can see a guy in the backyard and everything, unless you do X, Y, and Z. How's that work for you? He says, yeah, no worries at all. Fixed it. Trump, he's the art of a deal. He wrote his only book, or it's not his only book, but his biggest book was The Art of the Deal. He's a deal maker. He did it with North Korea. He comes in with a big stick and then ends up with peace. And he's the only president. And I don't want to say the guy's perfect because he's a mess, and I would hate to work for him. He's a complete narcissist, but he's getting the job done. he's the only president that didn't start a foreign war because he had such a big stick. And everyone, he told Putin, I listened to an interview, he told Putin, you know that church with the golden roof on it, the golden dome? He said, I'm going to bomb that if you don't do and they think this dude will. So they actually think he's going to. So he comes with a big stick.
Yeah, they were saying he only needs to be, was it like 5% possible that he might actually do what he says, and that's enough?
He in the debate the other night, he said to Joe, you're a typical politician. He's promising to do all this stuff now. He said, you've had 3 years. Why haven't you done it? He said, all politicians promise and don't do. And so he's not a conventional politician. And I think his side winning is ultimately bad for us, even though politically and ethically on
That's
what
Trump.
they stand. Trump's side.
And what do you mean by
Trump's
us?
side.
Do you want to unpack that?
A Bible-believing Christian that wants to obey their conscience, I think it's actually Christianity. The Bible's portraying Christianity instead of raising up a Billy Graham to preach the gospel. They're raising up senators and congressmen.
So you got mix of church and state.
You got the church and the government coming together, and it's called the Dark Ages. And I don't care if it's Islamic church and government working together or it's a Christian. We love Christian because we're Christians. When the Christians get hold of the government and they enforce Christianity by the law, that's a Dark Ages. That was the Dark Ages. And that's bad for us.
Yeah.
And that's the bit that you won't hear on any other podcast. Like that, you just listen to political podcasts. These guys with Christian worldview, they're fighting for their life to save their country. And I'm with them. I agree with them. But whenever you're relying on princes and kings to get the job done, it ends badly.
So what I guess it leads to our offer, Colin.
Well, I was going to say the pendulum swings, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's swung so far left now that it can't just swing back to the middle. It's going to swing further right.
It's a really good point.
People want to know, they're listening, they have no idea of Seventh-day Adventist Church, they have no idea of our beliefs, they have no idea of maybe even Christianity. And they heard you say a few things. What's a book that you can lead them to that's going to unpack some of the stuff that we're talking about biblically?
Mark Finlay wrote an excellent book called The Next Superpower.
Yep.
I've given away a lot of those books to
So
people.
look that up, Mark Finlay.
It's a
The Next
very and we're Seventh-day Adventists, but hey, it's not. It's this book.
That's right.
It's the Bible. It's denominations they've served their purpose, and we have one. It's important that you're organised, but end of the day, this is the one thing all Christians say. Yeah, that's what God spoke through.
Yeah.
And that book will teach you the Bible and what it says about end times, and that's what you need to know. That's what you need, and that's a very good book. How do they get hold of that, Kyle? What do they need to do?
We can text the word conflict
To which
04,
number?
the one-
04
yeah, that one.
82 082 876. I'm going to say that again. So if you send us a text in Australia, 0482 082 876. And you're going to text us what's the word? Conflict. We'll get you one of those books. And it's a cracker. It's a hard-covered book. It's a really good quality book. I love it.
Yeah, good.
There's some specific things that have happened, Phil,
Yep.
this last week.
Let's talk about them. Let's talk about this case in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Well, there's a few. There's not one.
There's about 18, I
yeah,
reckon.
there's a
But
few.
there's three that I want to pick on.
Fisher.
Fish is awesome because some poor people that went to protest the election, they believed it was stolen, which they're entitled to believe. And there's pretty good evidence that there was some dodgy stuff went on. There is in every election. They go and protest on January 6th, and then they go over to the Capitol. And I'm sorry, folks, but there's so much evidence that there was something going on with the FBI. There's a lot of undercover agents. They would not get the National Guard to guard the place. and they opened the doors for them.
Incredible.
And the people, you watch most of the videos, they're not like, they keep saying police officers were killed. The only person killed that day, there was a couple of people killed, were protesters. They weren't law enforcement.
There was a law enforcement guy that had a heart attack off-site.
At home
unrelated to
that
the
night.
event.
Yeah, nothing to do with the protest. And
Yeah.
you can watch the video. Tucker Carlson was given it all, and he did some. He lost his job because he came out and said the truth. There's something funny going on with January 6th. It's a setup.
Yeah.
I believe it was a setup, and the evidence for that is there. But anyway, they've jailed these people using a law, 1512C. You can put that up for us, I think, if you want to, Kyle, on the screen. 1512C, and it's called the Fisher case. They tried to distort this law that said that if you, impede people in Congress getting records and documents and evidence that you're breaking this law. Well, they said the January 6 rioters impeded Congress, but it had nothing to do with records or documents or evidence. So it was dodgy the way they did it. The Supreme Court said, yep, it's dodgy. They're letting all these people out of prison now. They use this law to imprison the January 6 protesters, which is, I think, is a good thing. You should be allowed to protest. Now, if you shoot someone, you've broken the law.
Mm-hmm.
If you kick in windows, you've broken the law. But most of the people getting imprisoned, not even close to breaking a law.
Yeah.
It's
They
the
open the
people's
door.
house. They're allowed to walk in
No
there.
breaking into because
No.
they opened the doors.
No. And there was some bad stuff went on that day.
Yep.
But there's some stuff the government has to, and why they're terrified of Trump winning, all that's going to get exposed. The pipe bomb supposedly at the DNC, that is so dodgy.
Mm-hmm.
This is an inside job, and it appears that the federal government in one arm, probably the FBI, is heavily involved in this thing. And they won't answer straight questions. That'll all come out, and there'll be people go to jail, but it'll probably be officials. That's why they're terrified of Trump winning, because he's his side. They've just jailed Steve Bannon today.
Yeah.
Which our Tuesday, Monday in America. Steve Bannon has the most popular podcast on politics in the United States, almost in the world.
The War Room.
The War Room. He wouldn't go to the January 6th committee. His lawyer told him, don't go because it hasn't been formed properly. That it's all Democrats have been put in. The Republicans refused to participate. They said this is wrong. So the lawyer said, you don't have to go. They're putting him in jail. Well, wait till he's got 4 months in prison. Wait till he gets out.
Yeah.
And if Trump wins, because Bannon really got him elected the first time, it's on like Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
These guys are in big trouble. So Fisher is one big case that's got these guys out. The other one, of course, being reported everywhere as we're recording this today, is Donald Trump has been, they said the president is immune from criminal prosecution for official acts. And it's like, oh, really? Every judge is immune from criminal prosecution from decisions they make. Every congressman, every senator has got the same immunity. Otherwise, any decision or law you make, you could get sued for later on in your life.
Yeah.
So, of course, the president has that. Every president from either side. Otherwise, they could all be prosecuted. Imagine Bill Clinton. Imagine Barack Obama. He was probably one of the cleaner ones. Joe Biden would go to prison 20 times over. So you can't – that immunity's just come out. So that's a big case because the prosecutions against Trump tried to get this sort of overturned. And the Supreme Court said, no, that's not happening. The other big one, and I've got to say it's probably the biggest one of all, is what they call the Chevron case. A bunch of fishermen were told, you have to have, this is the fisheries department, or whoever they call themselves over there, you have to have one of our observers on your boat, and it's going to cost you $700 a day to do that. And the fishermen said, why do we have to do that? The Congress never said we had to. You're just making this stuff up. So they took them to the Supreme Court, and the fishermen won. God bless the fishermen.
Yep.
When was the last time fishermen changed the world?
There you go.
Jesus. You know,
That's right.
Fishermen changed the world. So what's happened now? All of these federal bureaucracies, Homeland Security, whoever, they just, tobacco and tax and all of these different ones make up these rules themselves without a law from Congress. Well, the Supreme Court said, well, that's not a real law.
Yeah.
You can't enforce it.
You've got precedents.
So all of a sudden, and this is a part of the populists and nationalists deconstructing that deep state, the globalists that have control of things, all of a sudden now they've lost the control, and the swamp, the deep state, the unelected officials, whatever we want to call them, they just lost so much power with one decision. For the last 40 years they've been doing that. It's called Chevron because that was the precedent that was set, I think, 1980-something, 84. Now it's gone. So if you're going to enforce something, you have to have the law passed by the Congress that should be the people's house. So that's a massive shift. And it's put power over to Trump's side or that populist nationalist side.
Well, that's good. It's great.
I'm just getting warmed up here.
That's a good
I've got to calm down.
Good little intro to our show, The Perfect Storm. Cole, we want to thank you all for joining us.
Next time, we really want to get into what's really going to happen with this election, because this is now. I tell people, put on your seatbelt, put on your crash helmet, because this is on like Donkey Kong.
Batten down the hatches.
This is not politics as normal. There's too much at stake.
Yep.
Too much at stake. So we live in very exciting times, and we've only today talked on really politics. Man, the economy and debt. We got so much to cover. We'll have to do it next time.
Perfect. Remember, text. What do we text, Kyle?
Conflict
to 0482 082 876. And you'll get that book.
Cool.
Thanks for joining us. God bless you. And see you next time on The Perfect Storm.